board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Here.
Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Rhodey, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman French, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, 21 present.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries who's able to stand to please rise for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. Dispense with line item 3, introduction of honor guests. Any introduction of honor guests? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. You do such a good job there. Eventually, we'll see a collar on you. I'd like to have for my honored guest today, Jeanette Mott Oxford, who is our state rep in the disappearing 59th district, and she's also a candidate for the 5th senatorial district. And it's a pleasure to have her here. Mr. President, Ronnie Howard, too. He's probably hiding somewhere around here.
All right.
So.
You know, before we go further, we also want to welcome back the Alderman from the 10th. Welcome back, Alderman. We're looking forward. Alderman from the 23rd.
I noticed he's dressed like a baker too, so that's good. I'd like to have as my special guest Andrew Larson from the Painters, Rich Lux, who's with me over here from the Painters, and Donna usually introduces Gary Otten from the Painters, but I'm going to throw him into the mix. They're here admiring the art on the walls here. So these are my special guests.
Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would like to have as my guest today Mr. Steve Spreck with Communication Workers and a 16th Ward resident, and Anthony Lancia with AGC.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have one very special honored guest, Ms. Tina Johnson. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 14th.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'd like to introduce as my honored guest, Celeste Reuter from the Realtors Association.
Alderman from the 10th, you have anything to wrap us up on? You're looking good, too.
I wouldn't recommend it as a way to lose weight. Actually, you took it. I was going to be my honored guest today, but thank you very much. It's very nice to be here. I never thought of hearing Alderman say that.
Approval. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes of the May 11th meeting.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Alderman from the 24th, we recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request that we move Board Bill 7, Committee Substitute, to the Perfection Consent Calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make motion. Make note of that change.
So noted.
This Board Bill 7, Committee Substitute to Perfection Consent. Would anyone like to move any further bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to move any further bills off any of our informal calendars? We'll dispense with line items 9 and 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 54, sponsored by Alderman French, an ordinance authorizing and directing the street commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 3800 block of Clarence as Reverend Robert D. Strong Senior Avenue. Board Bill 55, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance ensuring the compliance with federal, Missouri, and City of St. Louis laws by contractors, participants, and employees on public works projects in the city. Board Bill 56, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance authorizing and directing the street commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 1500 block of Penrose as Pastor Emeritus Charlie Dooley Avenue. That's the extent of first readings.
Reference to committee.
To the Streets Committee, Board Bills 54 and 56. To the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 55. That's the extent of reference to committee.
We dispense with line items 13 through 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 7, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from A, single-family dwelling district, both A, single-family dwelling district, and D, multiple-family dwelling district, and F, neighborhood commercial district, to the H, area commercial district in city blocks for property on both Holt, Graham, Clayton, and Oakland, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 18, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to vacate vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel on LaSalle Street from Compton to Virginia and Virginia from Choteau to LaSalle. Board Bill number 39, sponsored by Alderman Conway and Vollmer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service establishing a public works improvement project for Kings Highway Bridge over the Union Pacific Railroad involving the reconstruction of the bridge and associated roadway improvements, containing a public work emergency clause. Board Bill 44, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance establishing a stop sign for all eastbound traffic traveling on Aldine at Bishop P.L. Scott, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 45, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance pertaining to street performers, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 47, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate travel in City Block 3946 and bounded by Papin, Pacific, Choteau, and Van Deventer. Board Bill number 10, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the transfer in the total amount not to exceed $2,600,000 from the Airport Development Fund into the Airport Revenue Fund, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 21, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance authorizing and directing the issuance by the city of its Airport Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2012 in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million, containing a severability and emergency clause. Board Bill 38, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing a seventh supplemental appropriation in the total amount of $1,246,398.85, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for perfection of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We also want to welcome Alderman Terry, Alderman from the 18th, were you welcome? And then the Alderwoman from the... I also want to welcome former Alderwoman Irene Smith to the board. Thanks for coming today. Is he here? Alderman from the 18th, do you have something for us?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, you recognize me?
Yes, you
Yes,
recognize.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to suspend the rules in order to place Board Bill 10, 21, and 38 on the third reading consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. I entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from 26. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman True, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvy, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Conway, Alderwoman Florida, Alderman French, Alderman Cone, Alderman Cone, Alderman Carter, 22 aye votes, 1 no vote.
It's been, by your vote, you abstained the motion of the Alderman from the 18th and move the aforementioned bills to the third reading calendar, third reading consent calendar. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 50, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission making appropriation for payment of the operating expenses, capital equipment, and improvement expenses, including lease purchase agreements involving Parking Division assets and debt service expenses of the Parking Division of the Treasurer's Office, Kiel, Argyle, Shoto, Williams Paper, Central Downtown, Buckingham, Couples, and Justice Parking Facilities containing an emergency clause.
Madam Clerk, please place Board Bill number 50 on the perfection and formal calendar.
So noted. That's
Third,
the extent of board bills for perfection.
third reading consent.
Board bills 10, 21, and 38, 3, 4 committee substitute, 35, 6 committee substitute, 8, and number 8.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for third reading and final passage of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 8th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman True. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed. Alderman Bosley. Alderman French. Alderman Carter. 27 aye votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from... The vote was already being put. By vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 13th and third read and finally pass the aforementioned bills.
That's the extent of third reading. Consent.
We dispense with line item 18. Hold on one second, Madam Clerk. I have no idea what it is. Report of enrollment.
Board Bills 3, 4 committee substitute, 35, 6 committee substitute, 8, 10, 21, and 38.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Move for adoption of courtesy resolution calendar and entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll dispense with line items 21 through 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Alderman from the 3rd, you recognize.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of the board, I was in another meeting this morning, couldn't get here in time, but I moved to take Board Bill 23, or Board Bill 50, off the informal calendar so that we might pass it because it's extremely important.
You want to just make a motion for perfection of that board bill?
Well, I just made the motion, I thought.
No, you said it's the move, just make a motion to perfect board bill. What's Board Bill 50?
Mr. President, Board Bill 50 is the Treasurer's budget, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that bill.
Hold on a second. I'll entertain a second on the motion.
We had a second.
Second? Seconded by the Alderman from the 18th. Alderman from 3rd, please proceed.
Okay, this is the third second I heard. Anyway, Mr. President and members of the board, I am moving to pass Board Bill number 50, which is the treasurer's budget. Now, the treasurer has two particular portions. One goes to the NEA, and the other one goes to the Streets Committee, where the board bill has been normally heard over the years. Now, I know there are people that will have questions relative to the expenditure. There was some discussion as to whether or not they wanted to modify certain line items. But all of the members of the board has to be aware of the fact that the treasurer of the city of St. Louis is not running for re-election. And this is the board bill that he has proposed for the succeeding treasurer of the city of St. Louis. So at that time, whoever is elected treasurer, we will have time to dissect this bill. We will have time to make motions. We will have time to move. We will have time to do anything that the new treasurer would like to do. I think it would be putting short pants on whoever's elected treasurer to turn around and make motions and dissect this bill now at this point in time, because the treasurer of the city of St. Louis, who is presently the treasurer, will not be there. So therefore, I'll renew my motion to pass Board Bill 50.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion on Board Bill 50? Alderman from the 24th.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes.
The motion is to pass, the motion is to perfect.
The motion is to perfect.
Board Bill 50.
50, yes.
What, was this on the informal calendar?
Yeah, yes, it was on the informal calendar.
Have we, and there's been a request to move it off the informal calendar?
When it's on the informal calendar, when they come up, all they have to do is make a motion to perfect it. So he made the motion to perfect it. Originally he stated the motion wrong when he stated that he wanted to make a motion to move it off of the perfection calendar.
So we voted on the perfection consent calendar, and now we're gonna vote on
under miscellaneous unfinished business. Okay. He's moving a bill off of the informal calendar at this point.
Okay. Here's a couple comments. In committee, we had looked at a couple line items based on the information we had. I was looking at legal services, which are up 30% over the last 2 years. I think we're at about $340,000 for the parking division's legal services budget. That's what was proposed in round numbers. That's up from, I think, about $220,000 from 2010. Also, there's $15,000 for travel in the parking division's budget every year. That seems to be in the budget every year, year after year. In committee, we heard that described as to go to a parking conference, travel to a parking conference where they talked about technology and best practices. And one question you might have is, has anything been implemented that they've learned at those conferences? We don't have a city-owned parking garage in St. Louis that accepts credit cards. So what is the benefit of continuing to spend this money if we're not implementing any of the stuff that is being presented at these conferences? I have to imagine at some point the idea of allowing credit card purchases has come up at one of these conferences. It seems like a glaring omission at this point in our parking division. The other thing is, we were presented with a lump sum figure for salaries in the parking division in the Streets Committee. You add everything together, it's about $3.1 million. We didn't have information on what those positions were, how many people work in the parking division. I'll say it's befuddling to me that you bring a bill to committee that's a budget for a department, but it doesn't explain how many people are working there, what their positions are, what those positions are paid. We had to request that information from Mr. Tom Stoff, who did provide it yesterday or the day before, which I appreciate. So now we've got it in front of us. But, you know, the cart is before the horse there when you get that information after committee. That's the time to review the positions and the salaries. Every other department does that in Ways and Means. The Parking Division is the one department that does that in the Streets Committee, and I would think it's not an unusual burden to at least provide information on staffing. We got that information here now, and a question that would have been great to ask Mr. Stoff in committee is, you know, security and risk management.
Some order.
I see one position, $64,844 for security and management. Is that one of these positions where we've got people undercover, you know, searching for people stealing quarters out of the parking meters? I don't know. We don't know because we don't have anybody here to ask. It would have been nice to have that opportunity to ask at the time. So without being able to ask those questions, I don't understand why we need to pass this bill through. Yeah, we're going to have a new treasurer. I think they take office January 1st. If I'm wrong about that, somebody can correct me. But why just give carte blanche for 6 more months? I mean, I think it's not out of the question to look at this budget and say, here are the questionable expenses in the budget. Let's get the new treasurer in for 6 months, and if they are, you know, if they say no, these are legitimate expenses, they can go back to E&A and they can get transfers back into the budget to have those expenses. But I propose a committee substitute that would have knocked the Parking Division Legal Services budget back to $220,000. That'd certainly get them through January 1st, and if they need an additional $120,000, they could go back to E&A. We're going through Ways and Means, and everybody, there's nobody in this room that thinks, okay, eliminating any police officer positions is something any of us would like to do. I doubt anybody in this room thinks that's an appealing idea. And at the same time, we know we're probably not getting enough revenue out of the parking division, so why don't we ask for some more revenue? Every $50,000 we get out of the parking division is another police officer on the street probably. So I don't think that's out of the question. I would urge people to not perfect this bill at the moment until we have a chance maybe to ask Mr. Stoff about some of these positions or introduce the committee substitute on the bill. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's nice to have an ally. I'm certainly supportive of the committee substitute that's being offered. At the same time, I would, point out that even if we reduce this appropriation bill by, let's say, $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000, that doesn't mean the money flows to general revenue. It means it stays in the treasurer's office. Until we get a new treasurer, that's not going to change. So, I'm going to vote in favor of the committee sub, but, I think it's more of a symbolic vote than anything else.
All right. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, will support this bill. And I thank the alderperson from the 24th Ward for his comments. It's important for all of us to be visual and want better on behalf of the city. Most of what we have known is that, number one, that is a county office. They are not absolutely required to give us any money. We also know that, irregardless of what we may think, there are some things that are going on that are very much in the positive. I can acclaim that I already have the first credit card payment machine in a parking lot in the city. I received the first one. There are now a number of them around the city on South Grand and everywhere else. So the parking commissions that have been working independently in neighborhoods, we've been working on these issues to bring those things to the city of St. Louis. And that's another part of what many people don't know and understand, how that process also works in conjunction with the Treasurer's Department. So as we move forward, when we come to the new year, when we have a new person in that position, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that there's more inclusion on decisions and that we have a format that provides us with the things that we believe operate best and have a working relationship that maybe we would, on a regular basis, have some money sent to the general revenue. But I will support the bill. Thank you.
All right, Alderman from the 23rd.
Just a question. We have Board Bill, at least what I have not got Board Bill 50 committee substitute in front of me. The only I have is Board Bill 50. Is there a committee substitute floating around?
You have to talk to the clerk.
I have 50. I don't have a committee substitute.
Where's the clerk?
Is there a committee substitute? No. Oh. I think maybe
You have
pass it across the road.
have a discussion with the clerk real
I'll
quick.
pass it
See
across
what's
the
going on with it. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 24th, would you like to proceed? I'll wait for the clerk to find out.
President, I'll clarify for the Alderman from the 23rd. I was talking about in committee. There were 2 committee substitutes introduced that made some changes that did not pass. The clerk is preparing a floor substitute right now, which would be the same changes that were in the committee substitute. So momentarily, everybody will have a chance to look at those. And while those are being prepared, I'll talk about them before I move to introduce them. The two changes that'll be in the floor substitute when it gets to you: one, the budget for travel will be reduced from $15,000 to $0 for the parking division budget. And 2, the legal services budget will be reduced from, I'm going off memory here, but about $340,000 to about $220,000. $220,000 is the 2010 level for legal services. So 2 years ago, this was an adequate amount for the Treasurer's Office for legal services. We heard in committee that the Treasurer's Office, that the parking division.
Please state your point of order, Alderman from the 3rd.
We went through this thoroughly in the committee. I move the point of order that we vote up or down the board bill that is before us.
I move to introduce floor.
Hey, Dave, come here. Alderman from the 3rd, I don't see where a rule is being violated, your point of order isn't well taken. Alderman from the 24th, please proceed.
Okay, I'm going to move, if it's in front of everybody, I'm going to move that we introduce Board Bill 50 floor substitute, which is along the lines of what I was just talking about, and I'll be happy to yield to questions if anybody wants more clarification on that floor substitute.
Alderman, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 24th. I entertain a second on that floor substitute. I'll entertain a second. Seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Moving to second. Any further discussion on the floor substitute for Board Bill number 50?
Mr. President.
Alderman from the 1st.
I inquire the Alderman from the 3rd.
Alderman from the 3rd, will you yield for questioning to the Alderman from the 1st?
Yeah, go right on.
Yes. Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Are you in agreement with the board substitute?
Absolutely not. He went through this thing thoroughly before the committee, Tom Stoff, who is the assistant treasurer, was there over almost 3 hours answering all of the questions, and these are the same amendments that was placed in the committee, and they were thoroughly voted down in the committee.
Do you have a copy of the current floor substitute?
There is no floor substitute. We got board bill.
Alderman from the 1st, earlier when the Alderman from the 23rd asked for the committee substitute, there isn't a committee substitute,
No
is what we
committee.
found
Board
out.
Bill 50 that's before us.
Well, what I'm trying to understand is how are we taking up and voting on a substitute or a bill that's not before the board?
Yes, Alderman from the 20th, when he asked the question, it was an error. There isn't a committee substitute. Only thing that's before us is Board Bill number 50, no committee substitute.
So do you have an amendment pending that we're voting on? Or are we having a substitute?
Board Bill number 50, the board bill that's before you is the one that we're voting on.
The amendment that's just put on my desk, this
And
is what is before us?
Yeah, and this floor substitute was introduced by the Alderman from the 24th, and that's the one we're looking to vote on now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from 22nd.
President, I just wanted to bring some up for clarification. When the Alderman from the 24th was talking about committee substitute, I think he meant amendment in committee. He introduced an amendment in committee that didn't pass. He did not introduce a committee substitute. So maybe that's throwing some people off,
Yes,
just for clarification.
Yes, and that's what we found out earlier. So Alderman from the 23rd, to answer your original question, there isn't a committee substitute. It's just the Board Bill 50 that was introduced by Alderman from the 3rd.
Right, this is just the amendment to 50, but it's not a floor substitute then, right?
No, it's just an amendment.
Amendment.
Just an
I
amendment.
understand.
Any further discussion on amendment number 1 to Board Bill 50? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 3rd, you have some discussion?
Mr. President, members of the board, that meeting lasted over 3 hours. These same amendments to that bill were presented at that committee. Mr. Stoff from the Treasurer's Office went through every single one of them. Did not ever at any time hold up, decline, or refuse to answer any of the questions relative to these substitutes. I would suggest that the new treasurer, and there is going to be one, there is no need to put short pants on whoever the new treasurer is, because there will be plenty of time for him to answer the questions that we may have relative to this board bill that is before us now, which is Board Bill 50. I think it would be a mistake to start dissecting it and taking it apart without the new treasurer having an opportunity to have some input as to how that would affect his operation of the treasurer's office. The treasurer of the city of St. Louis has been in there for some time, and I'm sure because of the number of questions and the amount of time that we spent in that committee, certainly was not going to put forth something that had all kind of holes in it. There was no continuity in it. There had not been any research, and who is better to understand the needs of the treasurer's office and the research that must take place other than the man who's been in there for about 15, 16 years. So I would suggest that we give the new treasurer, whoever that is, an opportunity to come in, and if they want to wipe the whole budget out, then that will come before the Board of Aldermen if it can get past our committees in the Board of Aldermen. I just think that it is a mistake at this point in time not to go on and pass the board bill out, because the people from the treasurer's office spent almost 3 hours answering questions, and these same amendments were placed before the committee. That's why we got committees, to go through this stuff so that the members of the Board of Aldermen don't have to. So I would suggest that we vote this amendment down, turn it over to the new treasurer whenever they come in, and then we will have an opportunity to quiz him to find out whether or not what he has in this budget makes sense to him and how he plans to run the treasurer's office.
Alderman from the 23rd.
I appreciate what the Alderman from the 3rd is saying, but and I'm still new, but I believe there's been a first and second, so I think this has to be dealt with before you can go back to 50 anyway, so.
Yeah, and that's what he was discussing the amendment that's before us. Yeah. Yeah,
So I'm actually, and I guess I don't want to call the question, but I wouldn't mind getting on with it.
Yeah, all right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 19th.
Mr. President, although I wasn't in the committee, of course, you know me, I'm always searching for information and understanding. As I understand from the presentation made by the Treasurer's Department in the budget for the coming year, I believe there was a dollar amount that had been indicated to be sent to the general revenue. And that dollar amount, I believe, was $500,000. And so that dollar amount equals much more than what is asked for in this amendment. So I don't know if this is necessarily needed at this moment. Again, we are looking at the opportunity to do changes the coming year, and also you'll have time to formulate some of those ideas for your changes through committee process, and when that new person is in place, we can look at some things. But again, the law does not require them to send us a dollar. Thank you.
Alderman from the 20th.
Mr. President, members of the board, would the Alderman from the 24th yield to questions?
Alderman from the 24th, will you yield for questions?
Yes.
Alderman, I'm trying to understand this. As I understand it, this floor substitute would not transfer any money from the treasurer's office to the general revenue fund.
Yeah, we don't have the ability to tell them how much money to take from the parking division, not from the treasurer's office, from the parking division, and contribute to the general fund.
Okay.
But we do have to review their budget.
Correct.
And
so what
if
this
they are
does-
spending, every dollar they spend on a $15,000 vacation that yields no benefits to St. Louis is a dollar that we know will not be transferred to the general fund. Now, when we have a new treasurer, if they come into office in January with $120,000 extra in their sitting in the parking division fund, that very well may end up being transferred into general revenue next year. But if they spend it, we know it won't be.
Did you take my question as being antagonistic? I'm just asking you whether or not this transfers money into the general fund, and the answer is no.
The answer is not yet.
Great, okay. So as I understand it, what we're doing is we're indicating that we're displeased about the amounts that were set forth on those particular line items. We're reducing them within the budget. All of that money is going to stay there. I think the Alderman from the 13th did indicate that basically we're just moving these items around. Whoever the new treasurer is going to decide where these items are going to go within that budget. So I think what we're doing is we're sort of setting forth our displeasure. And the longer we talk about this, the more it's clear to our constituents that we're displeased. But in fact, this isn't really going to get additional dollars that are needed to the general fund. That may happen down the road. So I think I'm understanding this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. With the Alderman from the 24th yield.
Alderman from the 24th, will you yield for question to the Alderman from the 22nd?
Yes.
Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
I just want to be clear. So how much are you reducing the overall budget?
In whole numbers, hang on. It's about $121,000 out of 14 million.
Okay. So what is it your intent as far as what happens to the 121,000? Is it just excess revenue?
My intent is that the parking division not take a $15,000 vacation, and that we not continue to spend $375 an hour on legal services. Good luck finding another line item in the budget that's increased 30% over the last 2 years. And that's why I identified this one. I looked at many budgets over the years, and that figure jumped out, that it grew a lot in the last 2 years. And I think it's an undue increase. And if we keep that money, it won't go into general revenue now, but if we keep it in the parking division's budget, it very well may go into general revenue next year. And look, if we're not here to review this stuff, if we're just here to take it as writ in stone from the parking division, well, they don't need us. We're here to review the budget.
Right. I certainly appreciate, where you're going with it appears to be excess. I mean, sitting on Ways and Means for the past 9 years, I've seen legal fees in different departments increase by a lot. The last time I saw an exorbitant increase was when we were dealing with telecommunications, suing, I believe, AT&T at the time, or T-Mobile, or some telecommunications giant, to give us the revenue that we were owed. So I understand how, when you look at it, it looks exorbitant, but it is my understanding from we learned in committee that the Treasurer's Office do have pending lawsuits. And I guess personally, I'm concerned that if we reduce that amount for legal services, they may not have enough money in order to defend themselves. So that's one point and concern that I have. The other concern I have is just making sure that they have a healthy, balanced budget. And it's not normal, I haven't seen it, whereby we pass budgets and we project excess. In a time that the city is in a fiscal crisis, I'm not sure how any department can project an excess. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that. And Mr. President, do I still have the floor?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to ask if the Alderman from the 3rd would yield.
Alderman from the 3rd, will you yield for question to the Alderman from the 22nd?
Yes, sir.
Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
Alderman, you serve on the Streets Committee, correct?
Yes.
And on the Streets Committee, how are they involved in preparing the budget?
Well, every year, the Park and Meter Division comes to us and they talk to us about what it is they're trying to do. They are the ones that prepare the budget that you saw, just like the mayor, the comptroller, and president of the board. They prepare that budget, Board Bill number 1, that we vote on. When we see it, then we have opportunity for input. If all 28 of us were putting in on what the treasurer's budget would be, and most of us don't even know what's going on over there until we have an opportunity to look at the budget or find out from them if we got questions about what's going on over there. And that's the same is true with the comptroller's office, same is true with the collector revenue's office, same is true with the license collector's office. We don't go down there and on a day-to-day basis expect them to give us information about what it is they're doing. We get their budgets and we have an opportunity to look at it. So when that budget came over here, we had over 10 days to look it over, and at that meeting, we were there almost 3 hours, having an opportunity, and the comptroller, the treasurer's representative, assistant treasurer, Mr. Tom, never once declined to answer any question, neither did he ever say he did not have the information. So at that time, everybody on that committee and those sitting in the audience, and there were some of them who had questions, they had the opportunity to ask those questions. He answered them in detail, maybe didn't say what it was the questioner wanted, but at least they answered the question definitively and in detail. So certainly we do not have input on what that budget is going to be because most of us have no idea. We don't have any idea how many people are working over there till we see his budget. We don't have any idea over there of what it is they're expended, about those garages, how much they charge for people to come in, what those garages net to the city. But when they bring that bill, we'll see it, and they have another bill from ENA that goes in there, which shows the input or the amount of money that they take in and what they give to the city. It's all detailed. There's no secrets here at all. 2 + 2 always equals 4.
Okay, Alderman, the reason I'm asking is because I want to make sure that we are all clear on the process. And if we pass the amendment and we pass a floor substitute to achieve the desired results that the Alderman from the 24th wants to achieve, I'm concerned that when it goes back over to the Treasurer's office, who has the opportunity to reallocate that $121,000? And will it come back to the Board of the Streets Committee for approval?
No, they won't come back to the Streets Committee, but they'll have to go to the ENA if they're going to comptroller, the president, and the Board of Aldermen, if they're going to change those expenditures that they have there. They can't do it in closed door, behind scenes where nobody knows what they're doing.
Well, let me ask you this. So if it goes to ENA, if they want to reallocate it, will the Board of Aldermen or the Streets Committee be notified that that transaction is before ENA?
Whatever goes before ENA, they send a bill or a letter over here to this Board of Aldermen, and every alderman here has the opportunity to visit the ENA meetings and have some input in whatever it is. The day after any budget is passed, they start moving that money around like 40 going west. And that's why every month you get an invitation to come to ENA, because what they propose to do initially, sometimes it changes and they have to move the money someplace else depending upon what it is that's in front of them right now that has to be done right now.
Thank you, Alderman.
Any further, Alderman from the first?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the gentleman from the 20th Ward, please? Alderman from 20th Ward.
Alderman from the 24th, would you like? Will you
I
yield
said
for
20th.
questions? The 20th?
20th.
Alderman from the 20th? Will you yield for questions to the Alderman from the first?
Gentlemen, I was listening to your comments. When you look at, and you seem to be very stickler for process. This amendment is before us currently.
Yes.
When, and as a member of Ways and Means, I think the reason we are where we are this morning is because the process needs to be fixed. So I don't think there's anything that we can do here today that's going to fix this process. The other county offices, all 7 of them, do they come before Ways and Means with their budget?
Their budget items are there. If we wish to hear from them, I believe that we can do that as well, yes, sir.
So this budget does not come before Ways and Means, is that right? Correct?
Well, I think it's in our
Essentially.
budget. I think it's in our budget book, yes, sir. But we have not heard from them.
And are we doing anything today that's going to fix that problem with this amendment?
And Alderman, I agree with you. That's what I was trying to determine. As far as I could tell from the discussion, it sounded like what we were doing was saying that we were unhappy with the amounts in certain line items, but in fact, it would not then move any of those monies to any other budget. So the only thing is it would stay within the treasurer's budget. So to the degree that that's not changing anything, I would agree with you. It's not really fixing anything, but it does indicate where Alderman would like it to go.
Okay, now let me ask you this question. Could we take any of this money that's being removed and move it to a different line item in the budget? Let's say beyond housing.
I don't think we can do that without approval of E&A.
Well, see, this is why it's important. I think we need to fix the problem, not reduce this to politics, and that's what this is doing. This is reducing this to politics. And if we're going to have an amendment, then the amendment should fix the problem, and fixing the problem by sending the treasurer's budget through Ways and Means like the rest of the county offices. And if we're not willing to do that, then you can't get up on the floor and come up with an amendment like this and ask the alderman to make an intelligent, informed decision when it's the first time we saw the amendment, which was essentially presented as a floor substitute. So I'm saying, in the midst of that confusion, I think we should go ahead on and approve the Board Bill 50, and then get together with the chairman of Ways and Means and the president and the treasurer and fix the problem. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that there's still time if you ask the chair to extend our hearings. I believe she has, in her wisdom of planning, has slated an extra day on Wednesday, that if she chose to do that and if the committee was interested, that might happen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 17th.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd just like to rise to make a couple comments. First is the city treasurer. I think we all know who've been down here for a while what goes on here. The city treasurer, to his political credit or savvy, has done what many people have done. They've gone down to Jeff City and neutered the Board of Aldermen and the mayor of the city of St. Louis by lobbying the legislature and the governor to go ahead and give them powers that are beyond our control. So not unlike the police department. And people kind of, people enjoy coming in and screwing around with our budget, and it's very easy for the state legislature to go ahead and play that game because it's not coming out of their budget. So we're all aware of that. That's been going on for years, and to the credit of our treasurer, he's been using that technique with a great deal of savvy for a number of years. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy going on about this office right now, and the people of St. Louis in just a couple months will be able to deal with that whole situation over there, and there's going to be a referendum on who's going to take over the reins, and then it'll be the new person's job to go ahead and decide how much of that money should come back to the city and how that office should be run, et cetera. But that's going to be decided in a couple months. In the interim, we're sitting here dealing with a resolution that impacts less than 1% of this office's budget, and it's out here on the floor of the board, and this is stuff that should have been dealt with in committee. I mean, if we were talking 50% or something like that, maybe we go ahead and slow down and figure this stuff out, but this is 1% of this, less than 1% of this office's budget. I mean, I don't know what's going on in there, and I can't figure it out from the floor. I mean, you're talking about going ahead and eliminating a travel budget from $15,000 to zero. Well, I know personally that the treasurer's office has some bonds, and I suspect that statutorily the treasurer is the signator on those bonds, and if somebody up in New York says we need the treasurer up there to sign something, by golly, we may need to send the treasurer up there to sign it. I don't know that, but that is certainly in the realm of possibility. And you have the same thing with the legal fees. What if they're going ahead and they're restructuring the debt on some of those parking garages, and they can go out and they can save, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year in interest for the next 30 years? Are we going to deny them $100,000 to go out and figure that out? I really don't know, but I'm sitting there going 1% of a budget on something that should have been figured out in committee, and the whole situation is going to be changed in a couple months. I think we're just wasting our time on this stuff down here, and I think it's just becoming, a way of getting in the newspaper and stuff. So I'm going to vote against this, and I think we ought to just go ahead and go forward with this and rely on the wisdom of the citizens of St. Louis to go ahead and select a treasurer. We got 4 excellent candidates, and I know who I'm going to be with, but I mean, I would be very happy with any of those 4 people. I think they're all great people, and I think they'll be able to come up with some solutions that will be good for the city of St. Louis. So,
Any further discussion? Any further? Alderman from the 22nd.
I said I wasn't going to say anything, so I apologize. I couldn't keep a word to myself. But I have to offer a point of clarification. The Alderman from the 3rd Ward said that this budget would go back to ENA if there's a shift from the 121 that we projected as savings. That's not true. If the Treasurer's budget itself is changed, it goes back to ENA. But the Parking Division's budget stays inside the Treasurer's office and is changed at that level. It does not come back to the Streets Committee, nor does it come back to the full Board of Aldermen or ENA. And I think we just need to be clear about that. And that needs to be important, and we need to understand that, because that means if we pass this, it's just a statement. And I'm not sure if doing it for the sake of a statement is good government. So I just wanted to offer that point of clarification. And that came from Mr. Tom Stoff, who happens to be in the chambers, who has been there for 18 years. So I trust that he has a wealth of knowledge and expertise in how that budget is drafted and submitted and executed.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 24th, recognize to close on amendment number one.
I just renew my motion to amend the Parking Division budget. I think, you know, we can't make a statement now. When are we ever going to make a statement? So sometimes the statement itself has some utility, and I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
I want to help you make a statement. We shouldn't leave you out there alone. You should get at least 3 votes. So aye.
Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman French. Alderman Carter. 5 aye votes, 21 no votes.
By your vote, you fail to stay in the motion. But Alderman from the 24th and denied amendment number 1. Alderman from the 3rd, you're now recognized on the perfection of Board Bill number 50.
Mr. President and members of the board, I move that we perfect Board Bill 50.
The motion is already before us. You just continue discussion. Any further discussion on Board Bill number 50?
Mr. President, as you can see, Mr. Stoff spent almost 3 hours in front of the Streets Committee and other alderpersons who cared to be there. This bill was not done in a vacuum. It was not hidden, and it was not in any way obscured from public input, public vision, public knowledge. I think this is very important that we send this bill through because we are going to have a new treasurer. There's no doubt about it, no if, there's no other way you can put it other than there's going to be a new treasurer. I don't believe that we should put short pants or tight shoes on the new treasurers that's going to come in. I think after having read this, he knows there's controversy. He knows there are different opinions down here, and I believe the new treasurer, whoever that is, when they come in office, they will then look this budget over carefully, and I know that if they have any ideas at all of how to do this job better, they're going to do it. And we should help them do that until it becomes abundantly clear that they don't know what they're talking about. At that point in time, maybe we could get one of the aldermen here to give them some advice. So, Mr. President, members of the board, I thank you so very much for the support. No, they don't come over here and tell us everything. But we have the right to be able to call them up and question them and get answers, even in writing, because sometimes what people say changes, but what they put in writing is going to be there forever. So I've never known a time when you called the treasurer's office, sent a letter over there, or requested information about anything that they were proposing in the way of spending city money that they refused to answer. And I still think those aldermen that have questions, and you got a legitimate right to ask those questions. That's why you're down here. You're not yes men and yes women. You're here to make sure that the city gets the best bang for every buck that we spend. And so having said all of that, I want to thank those that did see that it was a possibility for change, if need be, by whoever is the new treasurer of the city of St. Louis when they come in January 1, because all they have to do is dissect this budget real good and find out how is it that they can do things better. And so I want to thank all of you that did give the new treasurer an opportunity to be able to at least start in on the same ground that the old treasurer was on. And when they see there's an opportunity to do things better, I know they're going to do it. So thank you very much.
All right.
I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt, that we perfect Board Bill number 50, and Alderman from the 3rd just closed. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Whoa.
I'd already recognized them to close. I'd already recognized Alderman from the 3rd to close. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman True. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Onowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman French. Alderman Carter. 24 aye votes, 2 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman from the 3rd, and perfected the aforementioned bill.
That's the extent of miscellaneous and unfinished business.
Announcements.
Tuesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Health and Human Services Committee meeting, 9:30 in the Kennedy Room. Wednesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the second.
Members of the board, I'd like to announce that next Tuesday, the 29th, and June 5th, we're continuing our OpSpot spay and neuter program. We spayed over 30 animals between Saturday and Tuesday, vaccinated plenty as well as chipped them, and there's still other appointment slots that are available for May the 29th and June the 5th. So just give me a call at 388-3444. As well as I'd like to also announce again that our Live on the Rocks concert is June 1st, which is next Friday. It's a reggae concert. It's free. Please bring your lawn chair. We did move it from North Riverfront Park to the Chain of Rocks Bridge from 6 to midnight. Hope you can join us.
Alderman from the sixth.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to announce to members here at the Board of Aldermen and also to the public that on the 29th at 9:30 a.m., the Health and Human Services Committee, at the request of our chairman, Steve Conway, we are going to be hosting a committee hearing to discuss the city's homeless plan, relocation plan for the residents that were homeless along the riverfront. I encourage folks to come and hear and listen to see what the city is doing for those 60+ residents that have been living in tent cities along the riverfront. Additionally, there was a gentleman that wrote a letter. I believe he wrote this letter to all the members of the Board of Aldermen, but what he wanted to do was just to encourage our city for us to keep persevering in the face of adversity. His name is Mr. Andrew Webb. He's a motivator. He's written letters all across the country, and they've been read on the floors of various parliaments and legislative bodies. I won't read all of it, but I do want to just read his last paragraph to the city of St. Louis. He says, "Never give up despite the adversities you face. You all represent a bright future for our country, a future that is willing to move forward and overcome adversity. Your community, St. Louis, will rise up hand by hand, brick by brick, and become more successful than ever before. My thoughts and prayers are with you all. We are all one community. Only the lines on the maps define our borders. Each and every one of you will move forward from this moment. I don't doubt that." So I just want to thank Mr. Webb for sending this letter to encourage all of us here in St. Louis. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Alderman from the third.
Mr. President and members of the board, I'd like to announce that MSD, in their efforts to be able to talk people into giving them more money, is going to be the guest at the 3rd Ward Town Hall meeting that's Tuesday, the 29th, which is next Tuesday. They will be there. So anybody interested in hearing why it is they think they need more money and to give you an opportunity to determine whether or not you want to vote for that, I suggest you come. Also, all candidates running for office for this Tuesday, for August, are invited, have been invited, and those that don't show up will miss out on a crowd of about 150 prospective voters. That's going to be at Clay Elementary School. That's this coming Tuesday, the 29th. And Clay School is located at 3837 North 14th Street. That is the school you see when you get off of Highway 70 at Salisbury. That's the school on the right. So anybody that's interested to come to hear what these candidates have to say, you're welcome to come. They have 5 minutes to present whatever it is that they're proposing to do for people. And MSD, you certainly need to come there and hear what they got to say.
Alderman from 26.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Thursday, the 31st of May, we'll also have the 26th Ward meeting. We'll also have MSD representatives there talking about the $945 million revenue bill they're trying to float. So it's very important for people to come out, and we'll have other hosts of candidates that will come by and talk to a lot of the residents, mainly Congressman Clay. So that's at Union Memorial Church, Belton Boardman, Thursday, the 31st at 6:30. Thank you.
Any further? Alderman from the 20th. Could you please turn his mic on? Alderman from the 20.
It's my understanding that CNN has designated the city of St. Louis as one of the top 10 places to visit in the Memorial Day weekend, which we're approaching. Part of that is because of the Blues Fest that we're having downtown, but obviously there's lots of other great things. We do have some folks here at the board who have served in the military, and I believe that the president is preparing something for us to recognize what we are really memorializing this Memorial Day.
Yes, and now is probably the appropriate time. Could we ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries to please rise for a moment of silence in recognition of Memorial Day? Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I have two announcements. Number one, the 22nd Ward will have its regular scheduled meeting May 31st at Friendly Temple Church, 5515 Martin Luther King Drive. And as a veteran, I certainly appreciate what we just did at the Board of Aldermen, honoring those who have given their lives unselfishly in defense of our country. And on Sunday, well, Monday on Memorial Day, please reach out and thank a veteran.
Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to again thank the heads of the city departments that assisted the community of Botanical Heights and the Hill and others in Shaw that were in the midst of our new proposed housing for homeless, which was absolutely inhumane in thought. I have had an opportunity now to see firsthand how all city departments can come together and execute something without any consequences and undue hardship on anyone. In the middle of all of that, though, what happened was the residents realized that it's important for them to be together. So I wanted to commend them, most especially the president of the Botanical Heights Neighborhood Association. Nancy is phenomenal. She doesn't mind staying up all night long with emails going back and forth. So I thank her for her assistance, and I wish that all neighborhoods can come together and understand that if they don't march together, nothing good will happen. I also wanted to recognize Sweetie Pie's Upper Crust. She will be officially open for business on Tuesday, the 29th, I believe it is, the day after Memorial Day. She had a preview last Saturday that was phenomenal. She had about 1,000 people come in and look at her new facility that is definitely first class. We also have the opportunity now to have 2 new other restaurants that have now opened in the area of the Coliseum and the sub shop on Jefferson and Washington. Thank you.
All right. Any further announcements? Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would like to announce that on Monday in Francis Park, we have residents of St. Louis Hills that started 3 years ago a Support Our Troops fundraiser. All money raised goes to the USO's Wounded Warriors, and last year they raised $10,000. So if you can come to Francis Park Monday, 10 a to 6 p, and give to the soldiers that are coming back wounded, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 13, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse the alderman from the 21st and 27th wards due to necessary absence.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th, seconded by the Alderman from 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Alderman from 13, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., June 1st.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, we stand adjourned.